Let me ask you something. How many times have you said yes when everything inside you was screaming now? How many times have you bent over backward for someone only to feel resentful, drained, or even invisible? That's not love, that's self-betrayal. And I'll tell you this right now, if you don't get control of your boundaries, your relationships will control you. Here's the truth. Love without boundaries is not love, it's enabling. If you allow people to walk all over you, you're not keeping the peace, you're just postponing the explosion. And don't kid yourself, that explosion is coming. Boundaries are not about building walls, they're about creating clarity. They tell people, this is where I end, you begin. Without them, your relationships become toxic playgrounds where respect dies, resentment grows, and love starts to rot. Boundaries protect love. They don't destroy it. That sentence sounds simple, but most people treat it like a riddle that's too hard to solve. Here's the blunt truth. Love without boundaries is not mature. It's messy, codependent, and eventually corrosive. When you set a boundary, you aren't putting up a wall to punish someone or test their loyalty. You are setting the terms for how two adults will safely trade time, trust, and affection. Boundaries create the container where love can actually thrive because they replace chaos with predictability, ambiguity with clarity, and resentment with respect. Think about what happens when you don't have boundaries. You say yes when you want to say no. You swallow irritation to avoid conflict. You let people take liberties with your time and energy because you worry they'll leave if you push back. That pattern doesn't protect love. It rehearses one of two terrible outcomes. Either you explode later in a way that shocks and damages the relationship, or you quietly withdraw, resentful and distant until the relationship is hollow. Neither outcome breeds connection. Both make people miserable. Boundaries stop this slow erosion by allowing you to be honest about what you can and won't tolerate. Honesty done respectfully is an act of love, not a removal of it. Here's another way to see it. Boundaries are the rules of engagement for intimacy. If you and the people you love don't know the rules, you'll repeatedly step on each other's toes. Imagine playing a team sport where no one knows what positions they're supposed to hold. You'd run into each other, you'd miss passes, you'd get frustrated. That's life without boundaries. When you set a boundary, you hand the other person a playbook. You say, this is how I need to be treated so I can show up as my best self. That allows the relationship to move from chaotic survival to cooperative living. Boundaries also protect the very thing people say they want most: trust. Trust grows when people predictably behave in consistent ways. If your partner knows you will speak up when something crosses a line and will follow through calmly, they can stop guessing and start trusting. If your friend knows you won't be available for emotional labor every single time, they learn to secure other resources and respect your limits. In all these cases, boundaries create reliability, and reliability builds safety. Safety is the soil in which deep love grows. I know what you're thinking. Won't setting a boundary push people away? That's an understandable fear, but it's a confused one. People who truly care about you want a real relationship with the real you, not a relationship with someone pretending to be everything for everyone. If someone walks because you refuse to be drained into exhaustion for their benefit, ask yourself whether the person who leaves was invested in a healthy relationship in the first place. Sometimes the cruel fact of life is this: without boundaries, you keep people who only like the version of you that serves them. With boundaries, you invite people who value and reciprocate. That's not losing people, it's trading emptiness for quality. Boundaries aren't about being rigid or punitive. They're about clear expectations and compassionate consequences. There's a huge difference between punishing someone and protecting yourself. Punishment looks like passive-aggressive revenge or silent treatment. Protection looks like calm, consistent action. I won't be available for late-night arguments anymore. We can schedule a time to talk when we're both calm. Note the tone. The latter is respectful and gives the other person an opportunity to meet you halfway. That's how boundaries keep connection intact, by turning reactive chaos into thoughtful choices. Setting boundaries also models emotional maturity. If you want the people in your life to grow, you must show them what grown behavior looks like. Children learn more from modeled behavior than from lectures. The same holds for adults in relationships. When you honor your limits, you teach others the vocabulary of respect. They may grumble or push back at first. That's normal. Growth feels uncomfortable. But over time, consistent boundaries educate others about the level of care and responsibility that a healthy relationship requires. Finally, boundaries preserve your capacity to love. Love requires energy, emotional availability, time. If you drain that well constantly by saying yes to everything, your ability to be present, generous, and kind diminishes. Boundaries are the replenishing practices that allow you to show up well. Ironically, people often think being more available without boundaries equals more love. In reality, it equals less presence, less patience, and smaller reserves. Protect your capacity so you can give from abundance, not from depletion. So stop pretending boundaries are the enemy. They are the infrastructure of sustainable love. They aren't cold, they're courageous. They aren't selfish, They are the most practical form of self-respect that keeps relationships honest and lasting. If you want to keep people you love, learn to hold lines with care, clarity, and consistency. That's not harshness. That's the kind of tough love that actually saves relationships. You teach people how to treat you every single time you say yes or no. That's not just a catchy phrase, it's a law of human behavior. Every interaction you have is either training someone to respect your limits or conditioning them to believe they can ignore them. People aren't mind readers. They don't automatically know what you will and won't tolerate. What they do know is what you've taught them through your actions, your responses, and your patterns. If you want respect, you can't just wish for it. You have to demonstrate over and over what respect looks like in practice. Think about this like a classroom. If the teacher says no phones during class, but then allows 3 students to text under their desks without consequence, what do you think will happen? Everyone else will test the boundary too. The teacher didn't enforce the standard, so the class learned a new rule. This boundary isn't serious. Relationships work the same way. When you say, I don't like it when you raise your voice at me, but then stay in the room and continue the argument while your partner yells, you've just taught them that yelling doesn't actually cost them anything. Your words said one thing, but your actions gave permission. That's the heart of this principle. Every yes and no is a teaching moment. When you say yes to something that violates your values, drains your energy, or disrespects your dignity, you are effectively running a training program on how to mistreat you. On the flip side, when you calmly but firmly say no to something unhealthy, you are training the people around you on how to interact with you in ways that preserve trust and connection. Whether you realize it or not, you are always in the role of a teacher in your relationships. Here's where it gets tricky. A lot of people think they're being kind or selfless by saying yes all the time. They imagine that endless availability will earn them love, loyalty, or gratitude. But in reality, it usually earns them the opposite entitlement. When people get used to you sacrificing your needs for theirs, they stop seeing it as a gift and start seeing it as the norm. You've trained them to expect it. And then when you finally hit a breaking point and try to pull back, they accuse you of changing, being selfish, or not caring anymore. But the truth is, you created that dynamic by teaching them through years of unguarded yeses that your needs didn't matter. On the other hand, when you consistently demonstrate healthy boundaries, people adjust to that as their baseline expectation. For example, if you never answer work emails after 7 p.m., your colleagues eventually stop expecting you to. If you politely decline when someone tries to guilt you into commitments you don't want, they learn guilt won't work on you. You've taught them the rules, not with lectures, but with consistent behavior. And consistency is key. A shaky no, followed by a reluctant, okay, fine, trains people to push harder next time. But a clear no that's honored every time teaches them that pushing won't change your answer. This doesn't mean you have to become rigid or inflexible. Teaching people how to treat you isn't about coldness or cruelty. It's about clarity. You're allowed to be generous. You're allowed to make exceptions. But if you want to protect your dignity and your peace, those moments of flexibility have to be conscious choices, not automatic habits driven by guilt or fear. Otherwise, you're teaching inconsistency, and inconsistency is confusing and destabilizing in any relationship. It's also important to remember that people who truly care about you will rise to the level of respect you set. If someone leaves when you stop tolerating disrespect, it's not because you did something wrong, it's because they didn't want to meet the standard of decency you established. That's not a loss, it's a filter. You cleared out someone who was only comfortable in a dynamic where your needs were secondary. The ones who remain, the ones who respect your boundaries even when it inconveniences them, are the ones who are capable of building healthy, lasting love with you. You can't control everything about how people treat you, but you can control what you accept, what you reward, and what you allow. Every yes and no is shaping the culture of your relationships. If you don't like the culture you're living in, start teaching different lessons. Say yes when it aligns with your values and capacity. Say no when it violates your well-being. Over time, people will adjust to the new curriculum. And if they don't, they will naturally drift away. Either way, you'll be left with relationships built on real respect instead of silent resentment. So the next time you're tempted to say yes out of fear, pause and ask yourself, what am I teaching right now? Am I teaching that my time, my energy, and my needs matter? Or am I teaching that anyone can walk right over them without consequence? That moment of awareness can change everything. Because the truth is simple. People treat you according to the lessons you consistently deliver. If you want better treatment, become a better teacher. Boundaries without follow-through are just empty threats. That sentence should sting a little because it's where most people sabotage themselves. Anyone can talk tough in the moment. Anyone can say, this is the last time, or I won't put up with that again. But if the behavior repeats and you do nothing, your words lose all weight. A boundary is not what you announce. A boundary is what you enforce. Without action, it's just noise. And here's the hard truth. When you repeatedly set boundaries and then fail to back them up, You don't just fail to protect yourself, you actually teach the other person that your limits aren't real. You train them to believe that persistence, pressure, or guilt will eventually break you down. Think about it like parenting. If a parent tells a child, no dessert unless you finish your dinner, but then hands over the ice cream when the child whines long enough, what lesson is the child learning? Not about nutrition, not about rules. The child learns one thing, whining works, and once they know whining works, why would they ever stop? Adults operate the same way in relationships. If you set a line but collapse under pressure, people learn that your line is temporary, negotiable, and ultimately meaningless. Follow through is the credibility of your boundaries. It's the backbone that transforms words into reality. You can have the clearest script in the world. You can sound calm and firm, but if your actions don't match your words, the message falls apart. Let's say you tell a friend, I can't keep lending you money. It's not healthy for me. But then the next week, when they show up with a story and a sad face, you hand them cash again. What have you actually communicated? Not that you can't lend money. What you've shown is that with the right amount of pressure, you will. The follow-through didn't happen, so the boundary didn't either. This doesn't mean follow-through has to be dramatic or cruel. It doesn't mean slamming doors or cutting people off at the first misstep. What it means is that your words and your behavior match. If you say you won't answer texts after midnight, then you put your phone down and don't respond until morning. If you say you need a calm tone for difficult conversations, you exit the conversation when voices get raised and return when things cool down. That's follow-through. It's consistent, it's respectful, and it's firm. The challenge is that follow-through often comes with discomfort. People won't like it at first, especially if they're used to you bending. They'll test you. They'll push harder. They'll say you're being difficult, selfish, or unreasonable. This is the exact moment where most people crack because they want peace in the moment more than they want respect in the long term. But the discomfort is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's proof that you're actually doing it right. You're disrupting a pattern that has served someone else's comfort at your expense, and that disruption will create resistance. The question is, can you stay the course? Follow-through also matters because it's where you build self-respect. Every time you enforce a boundary, you send yourself a message, I can trust me. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. That builds confidence. On the other hand, every time you set a boundary and don't follow through, you erode your own trust in yourself. You feel weak, frustrated, even ashamed, because deep down you know you didn't back yourself up. That inner erosion matters just as much as the external message you're sending to others. Another reason follow-through is so critical is because it creates clarity. Relationships without clear follow-through get stuck in endless arguments. You say, stop doing that. They keep doing it. You keep complaining, and the cycle repeats. But once you actually take action, the ambiguity ends. The other person sees that this isn't just talk. Now they know the real cost of ignoring your limit. And once the cost is clear, they can make an informed choice, respect the boundary, or risk the relationship. Without follow-through, there is no choice, only endless negotiation. It's also important to note that follow-through doesn't always mean cutting someone off. It can mean adjusting access, changing your behavior, or limiting engagement. For instance, if someone constantly cancels plans last minute, follow-through might mean you stop making elaborate plans with them. If a coworker consistently dumps tasks on you, follow-through might mean you decline extra work instead of just venting about it. These are not punishments, they're natural consequences. And natural consequences are the language people actually understand. The bottom line is this: boundaries without follow-through are just empty threats, and empty threats damage relationships more than no boundaries at all. Why? Because they create distrust. The other person stops taking you seriously. They may even lose respect for you because deep down, people respect those who are consistent. When you stand by your boundaries, you show integrity. When you don't, you show weakness, and love without respect cannot last. So if you want your boundaries to mean something, you must decide in advance what follow-through looks like. Ask yourself, if this limit is crossed, what am I prepared to do? And then do it every single time. The consistency will be hard at first, but over time it builds the culture of respect you want. Words may set the stage, but actions deliver the truth. And in the end, it's the follow-through that protects your peace, your self-respect, and your relationships. When you respect yourself, you give others the roadmap for how to respect you. That isn't a clever slogan. It's behavioral economics applied to relationships. People don't magically know what you want or how to treat you. They look at your life and take their cues. If you let yourself be late to your own needs, cancel your own plans, or apologize for asking for what you need, you're handing everyone a field guide on how to treat you low priority, negotiable and expendable. Respect starts inside and radiates outward. It's less about the speech you make and more about the life you live. Self-respect shows up in tiny, consistent decisions. It shows up when you honor a promise to yourself more often than you break it. It shows up when you protect your time because you value it, when you decline invitations that drain you, and when you speak for yourself instead of waiting for someone else to read your mind. These moves send a clear signal you treat your needs as worthy, and humans are pattern readers. When your friend, partner, or coworker sees you consistently choose yourself in reasonable ways, they automatically recalibrate their expectations. They think, oh, this person won't be used for free labor, emotional dumping, or last-minute favors. That mental recalibration is the roadmap I'm talking about. They now have a practical map of how to act if they want to be in relationship with you. Respecting yourself is not arrogance or selfishness. It is clear boundaries plus kindness. There's a difference between I need X to be well and I demand X and everyone else must kneel. The former earns respect, the latter invites backlash. When you show self-respect, you model mature behavior, calm firmness, accountability, and predictable follow-through. People respect maturity. They may resist initially if they've benefited from your previous availability, but resistance is not the same as losing respect. Often the opposite happens. The people worth keeping will step up because they finally understand the rules. The people who don't will reveal their inability or unwillingness to respect you, and that revelation, painful as it may be, is useful information. Self-respect also protects your emotional bandwidth. When you consistently act in ways that honor your limits, you preserve energy for the people and causes that deserve it. That preservation is attractive. It makes you more present and generative in the relationships you choose to invest in. In contrast, chronic self-neglect produces resentment, burnout, and a brittle generosity that snaps at the slightest pressure. If you want to be generous from abundance rather than depletion, respecting yourself is the practical prerequisite. There's a psychological mechanism here that's easy to miss. We teach others by demonstration, not by lecture. Telling someone, you need to respect my time, while continually showing up late for your own plans is incoherent. Demonstration creates cognitive dissonance in observers. They resolve it by trusting what they see. So if you want someone to respect you, do things that align with that request. Silence the internal apology voice that mansplains your needs into submission. Choose actions that support the message you want the world to learn. Start small if this feels impossible. Pick one real achievable standard and enforce it for a week. Don't answer work emails after 7 p.m. Decline one social invite that doesn't serve you. Say no to an extra task at work. Each small act compounds. Every time you honor a boundary, you build a little more self-trust, and self-trust is contagious. People notice when you stop being a doormat. They'll either adjust or they won't, and either outcome reveals who's committed to a healthy relationship and who's comfortable exploiting you. Follow-through is the engine that converts self-respect into social change. You can declare a boundary, but it won't recalibrate anyone's behavior until you actually enforce it. If you don't hold the line, you teach inconsistency, and inconsistency is a license for disrespect. This is where courage matters more than clarity. It's uncomfortable to disappoint people in the short run, but it's catastrophic to disappoint yourself in the long run. The practice of following through, calmly, without theatrics, is what eventually alters other people's maps. Respecting yourself also means choosing your words carefully. How you explain your needs matters because tone colors perception. Calm, clear explanations framed around your values land better than angry proclamations. For example, I'm not available after 8 p.m. because I need time to recharge so I can be fully present. That's both honest and educative. It teaches people the reason behind your boundary, which helps them respect it rather than resent it. Finally, understand that self-respect is a filter. When you consistently honor yourself, your relationships change, some deepen, some fade. That's not failure, it's curation. The relationships that remain are the ones built on mutual regard, not exploitation. That's better for everyone. You don't owe anyone a seat in your life if they refuse to behave like a decent human. Giving people a roadmap for respect isn't about ultimatums, it's about clarity, integrity, and self-preservation. Do that, and you'll find your life populated by people who know how to show up because you showed them how.